to Pete conversation. Mr. Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look forward to your leadership and your tenure in this committee. I've indicated to you privately I want you to be successful. Whether that means you want me to be for you or against you, I will do whatever is best for you. Secretary Buttigieg, good to see you again. As former Mayor Torres mentioned, it was good to be in your company at that Brightline event, and I want to thank Mr. Valadeo for the segue in this question that I have. The California delegation is incredibly excited to play a role in bringing the Olympic and Paralympic Games to Southern California in 2028. The LA Olympic Organizing Committee is already fully engaged in the planning process. Historically, the federal government has provided significant resources to support and ensure the safety and success of the Olympic and Paralympic Games. Just thinking ahead about the department and their preparations for LA 28 Olympic transportation needs, how are you thinking through that? Realizing that this is always difficult. These are not annual things, but clearly this is a significant event. It was equal to 7 Super Bowls over a short period of time, and the significant challenges that we have. How are you guiding the department in thinking about the LA 28 Olympics?
Well, thank you for the question. And as you note, the Olympic Games are just a massive undertaking that requires a lot of forward thinking about how to move people around efficiently and safely. DOT, in particular, our Federal Transit Administration, have been working with the Olympic Organizing Committee, LA 28, since early 2023. Just had a conversation the other day, most recently with that committee, myself. And I should note there's an intergovernmental working group that's been set up by the White House to try to make sure that transportation, security, and other needs faced by the organizers are well coordinated on the federal side. We've had DOT staff tour the expected venues, housing, and transportation projects recently, and are committed to working with the LA region to make these the best Olympic and Paralympic Games in American history. A couple things of note: they have declared their intention to expand transit in the region to meet the needs for these games. So they are establishing a Games bus route network to provide the ability to reach relevant destinations and hubs. There's also the supplemental bus system, or SBS, concept. We'll continue to work with LA to address the challenges that come with that, basically mobilizing vehicles borrowed from other jurisdictions, trying to help make sure they can navigate funding, availability of vehicles, drivers, and mechanics, and just the logistics of borrowing buses from other transit operators in other jurisdictions. I'd also note there are plans to establish mobility hubs that will create inclusivity for all of the suburbs and the outlying communities that are going to play a very important role in the games. And we're pleased to see that the GM of LA Metro has been working hard to try to turn LA's resources to work for what we think could be a chance to really showcase what 21st century transportation can look like under the kind of pressure that the foot traffic associated with the games can cause.
And we want that to be successful. What resources do you anticipate needing from this committee in order to make that happen? Specifically, the bus program that you mentioned, it's been discussed about resources.
That certainly is one where funding could play an important role. We'd be happy to work with this committee and work with the organizers, depending on what funding Congress could make available, just because we're talking about a lot of vehicles and a lot of pieces that have to come into place. We're also working just to make sure we have the technical expertise and assistance in place, and think that working group and that regular cadence of contact is going to serve us well.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is Representative Torres mentioned, and again, Mr. Valadeo alluded to, we were at that Brightline event. I appreciate in your testimony, I also wanted to highlight that you discussed the project creating 35,000 jobs, lowering our carbon footprint and bringing communities closer together. As the DOT distributes funds from the infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act, how do we ensure that communities and transportation agencies at the state level are working together for that shared goal of lowering emissions while connecting communities?
Well, we certainly find that every state has a different strategy for addressing air pollution and carbon emissions. So we're trying to meet them where they are, and at the same time ensure that there's that every statutory high bar is met. Often we find there are projects that the states have been wanting to do for a long time, but until the IIJA just didn't have the resources for. And so whether we're talking about longstanding programs like the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, or things like the Protect grants on resilience that didn't exist before the bill. We're mobilizing every tool that we can, and also I would mention, in addition to our state partners, sometimes directly engaging cities, transit agencies, airport authorities, especially if we find that they have maybe a higher level of climate ambition than their respective state capitals, and we want to make sure we're supporting them too.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Pete. Mr. Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. I want to ask a couple of questions about the 6th District of Virginia.